back and return to the great business that he described. Trustee Abrego, Trustee Abrego could use a chair as well. Once you have it, will you please convene the Committee on Institutional Advancement? This is my CSU thumb.
Very good job, Tim. Very good job.
Okay, looks like we're ready to go. Will the Committee on Institutional Advancement please come to order? I know that we have no speakers this morning. So now it's time for the committee to consider today's consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. On the discussion agenda, we have 3 action items. The first action item is a facility naming request from Sacramento State. Vice Chancellor Garrett Ashley will present the request. Please begin, Garrett.
Thank you, Trustee Abrego. This item will consider naming the Science Complex at Sacramento State as the Ernest E. Channon Science Complex. The proposed naming recognizes the $9 million pledge by Mr. Channon. This gift will support building costs associated with the new science complex. The 95,000 square foot life and molecular science building will feature state-of-the-art teaching and research labs, a planetarium, a rooftop observatory, and a science plaza with a green terrace. I now turn this over to President Nelson to say a few words.
Thank you. Ernest E. Channon is a committed partner of Sacramento State, and he has become a dear friend of mine. Ernest's first gift to the university came after our men's basketball team held a meet and greet at a local grocery store. Ernest learned of our efforts to build an event center. He visited campus, he attended games, met the student athletes, and he fell in love with Sac State. He immediately committed to $750,000 to our Power of 1,000 Hornets campaign. This generous gift was the largest that a Hornet athletics team has ever received. Ernest has made it clear that he wants his personal fortune to stay in the United States, the land where he earned it. He wants to give back to that country that gave him the freedom to succeed. Today, I'm to be able to share a little about Ernest and about how Sac State will continue to benefit from his generosity, the generosity of an individual who cares so much about the Sacramento region. Ernest is a native of Switzerland who moved to the United States in the 1950s. He worked as a civil engineer and later found success as a real estate investor. Because of his success, he has donated millions of dollars in charitable contributions. Sacramento State is the 3rd institution of higher education to benefit from his exceptional generosity. He also has given to other philanthropic causes, including the University of California Davis Eye Center, California State Parks and Recreation, Sacramento Food Bank, American River Parkway Foundation, and numerous other hike and bike trails. Ernest believes in investing in the future of his community. Currently, at the age of 92, he is settled in Orangeville, California, and continues his lifelong pursuits of cross-country as a cross-country skier, kayaker, hiker, and cyclist. And I have to admit, I cannot keep up with him when it comes to the hills. Ernest believes in the Sacramento region and understands that his gift to Sacramento State will further ignite philanthropy and philanthropic support and a culture of philanthropy at Sacramento State. Recognizing his impact on the community, then Mayor Kevin Johnson declared Ernest's birthday, February 16th, as Ernest E. Channon Day of Sacramento. Today's students, The students who will benefit from Ernest's gifts are the future leaders who will be charged with solving the great challenges facing the world, including healthy aging, climate change, and hunger. The science complex, which will bear his name and where these students will learn, will be a place of discovery where our students and faculty will tackle, and I hope, find solutions for these complex problems, solutions that match Ernest's philanthropic priorities: healthy aging, life sciences, and the environment. Moreover, the Ernest E. Janin Science Complex will serve as a tribute to his late brother, who taught chemistry and had a PhD at a university in Switzerland. What a legacy. What a friend. To Sac State, to the CSU, to California, and to the country where he immigrated and where he fell in love. I am honored that our science complex will bear his name. A man who has committed his life to help change the trajectory of our country and the trajectory of so many of our students. Thank you, Ernest, and thank you, Garrett, and thank you, trustees.
Thank you, President Nelson, and thank you so much for introducing us to this wonderful individual. The naming of the Ernest E. Janin Science Complex at California State University, Sacramento, is an action item before the Committee on Institutional Advancement. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The naming of the Ernest E. Janin Science Complex is approved.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say that, again, we have this, I want to say about how, again, another generous immigrant has committed millions to the CSU.
Thank you for that, Hugo. President Nelson, would you please escort Mr. Janin to the lectern where he will be joined by Chancellor White and Trustee Eisen.
Thank you so much. Well, young man, thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, son. Inspiring story. I'm so excited about it. Thank you so much. A few comments that I'll ask you to make. Shall I talk a few minutes? Yeah, let me start. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Chair Eisen. Well, I want to thank you, Ernest, and thank you, Trustee Abrego, for the opportunity. Thank you, Ernest, for your amazing, generous, and consequential gift pledge to the students and community of Sac State. Your forward thinking to the science complex, as President Nelson articulated, is certainly inspiring, and your story as an immigrant, and Hugo, thanks for pointing that out. Us immigrants have to stand together here. So don't ask me for money, though. As a staunch supporter in the power of public higher education, indeed, as a Californian, and this is how our legacies, I've just had a chance to reflect on some, and now we'll add Ernest to that list of legacies, to their passion, leadership, generosity, inspiration, and so please, we would be delighted to hear a few comments from you.
Good morning, my dear members of the California State Universities. My name is Ernest E. Channon. I'm so delighted to be here and to be able to help the Sac State University to build this science complex. I am, like it was mentioned, I'm from Switzerland. I came here as a poor immigrant. I was educated as a mechanical engineer, but then I decided to go to real estate investment, and that was financially very profitable. And that is also why I'm able to do that. And I'm really thankful to be in this country. And I just like to have this building erected there. And I'm so glad I'm able to contribute to that. And it's a very good purpose of the money spent for the education of young students here. And I'm so glad I'm able to help there. That's it. Yeah, that's it.
Come over here and take some pictures.
What?
Take some pictures over here. Take some pictures over here. Pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a recognition of facility naming, and you learned from the president and Ernest commented himself of why the whereases are whereases, and resolved by the Board of Trustees of the California State University that the Science Complex, California State University, Sacramento, be named in his honor. We can shoot this.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Fantastic. I'm really glad. That is fantastic.
Stingers up for me. Do the stingers up for me.
It's what?
Stingers up. Stingers up.
There we go. We'll ship this to you, so you don't have to carry it. All right.
Thank you. Very nice.
The second action item is a facility naming request from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Vice Chancellor Ashley will once again present the request. Garrett?
Thank you, Trustee Abrego. This item will consider naming the newly constructed equestrian facilities at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo as the Oppenheimer Family Riding Pavilion, Oppenheimer Family Stallion Barn, and Oppenheimer Family Foaling Barn. You may recall these equestrian facilities from a campus planning, buildings, and grounds presentation at the May 2017 board meeting. The proposed naming recognizes the $20 million gift by Peter and Mary Beth Oppenheimer. This gift will be used to provide 60,000 square feet of partially enclosed and covered riding areas, support facilities and vehicle parking for current programs and expansions, a north pavilion, also a stallion barn, which includes 3 stalls with the option to expand to 4, as well as paddocks, a breeding lab, and an office, and a foaling barn with 6 stalls, storage space, and a student lounge area. I now turn this over to President Armstrong to say a few words.
Thank you, Garrett. It's a pleasure to bring this naming forward today. Peter and Mary Beth Oppenheimer are friends and longtime supporters of Cal Poly. They are both Cal Poly alumni and Cal Poly parents. After earning his BS in agricultural business, Peter went on to a successful career in Silicon Valley, where he was Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer at Apple Incorporated, and now sits on the board of Goldman Sachs. After his retirement in 2014, he and Mary Beth moved to San Luis Obispo and have become increasingly engaged with Cal Poly in the community. Peter is chair of our Cal Poly Foundation. More importantly, Peter and Mary Beth were the initial advocates and donors for our Campus Hunger program. They've supported Cal Poly scholars and were major donors to our J&G Lau Family Meat Processing Center. In 2014, the Oppenheimer family committed $20 million to further our Learn by Doing facilities in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environmental Sciences. That gift, in part, has funded these wonderful equine projects. We're fortunate to have their support, and generations of our students will benefit from these truly world-class facilities. I look forward to coming back to you in the future as we continue to plan and build projects made possible by their generous gift. So I'll turn it back to you, Garrett.
Thank you, President Armstrong. The naming of the Oppenheimer Family Riding Pavilion, the Oppenheimer Family Stallion Barn, and the Oppen Family Foaling Barn at California Polytechnic State University, San Luis Obispo, is an action item before the Committee of Institutional Advancement. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion? Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The naming is approved. The final action item in the annual report of donor support for 2016-17 is required by the Education Code. This report is submitted to the Joint Legislative Budget Committee and the Department of Finance. Vice Chancellor Ashley will begin the presentation. Garrett?
Thank you, Trustee Abrego. This was another record-breaking year for the California State University. For the first time, we surpassed $500 million in gift commitments. Sometimes I like to say $500 million. This is a celebration and investment in the excellence of the CSU and our ability to move forward meaningful change. Further good news, our endowments reached an aggregated value of $1.6 billion, thanks to strong investment returns that averaged 11.5% and $88 million in new gifts. Distributions exceeded $48 million, funding scholarships, research innovation, and faculty excellence. Endowment distribution coupled with annual gifts provided a remarkable $53 million in scholarship awards to students in 2016-17. Fundraising at the CSU continues to gain momentum and have meaningful outcomes for our students. I believe part of this success can be attributed to our efforts at the Chancellor's Office to better tell our story and to support campuses, including acquiring funding for multi-campus initiatives and trading provided through a program that we call the Advancement Academy. Indeed, as the Chancellor referenced in his remarks earlier, a recent study by the Public Policy Institute of California indicates that our story and our growing connections to donors and the community is resonating with more and more Californians, with 65% rating the CSU as excellent or great. That's a 9-point improvement since 2011. And as our Storytelling and Advancement Academy efforts, among many others, continue, we hope to see our support grow even further. I'd like to thank and congratulate each and every campus for contributing to this success. I now turn this over to Assistant Vice Chancellor Lori Redfern to share more details from the donor report, including the success of grant activity here at the Chancellor's Office, and also President Bill Covino to share how Cal State LA utilized the Advancement Academy to build a culture of philanthropy. Lori?
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Ashley. For the 5th consecutive year, the number of alumni donors increased, this year reaching over 95,000, which is an 8% improvement. Among those alumni donors were William Frost of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and his wife Linda, a San Jose State graduate, who committed $110 million to broadly fund Cal Poly SLO's undergraduate research with high-tech labs, student stipends, and important faculty release time for mentoring. It represents the largest gift in the history of the CSU. Like the Frost gift, 98% of donations to the CSU have a donor-designated purpose. Donors want to enhance opportunity, enrich learning experience, and to provide a margin of excellence. Philanthropy helps transform our efforts from good to great. These gifts are incredibly beneficial, but it's also important to note that they generally do not provide long-term operational support. 60% of gifts support current programs, funds available for use today. That's over $200 million in gift receipts for scholarships, new lab equipment, hands-on classroom activities, and helping students with housing and food insecurity. 25% goes to endowment. As Vice Chancellor Ashley mentioned earlier, that represents $88 million. About half of those gifts are dedicated to scholars and the other half to academic programs. 9%, at $29 million, is earmarked for campus building projects. 4% are irrevocable deferred gifts, and 2% is unrestricted. One of the advantages of being a system is our ability to amplify funding opportunities. Over the last 5 years, over $15 million has flowed through the Chancellor's office to campuses. This is thanks to the amazing work of academic and student affairs. They partner with foundations and corporations to scale up activity across the system. These partners see us as innovation incubators and know that what we achieve in California can be a model across the nation. Some grant activity stays at the Chancellor's office and is reflected in the Chancellor's office philanthropy numbers. When a grant is subawarded to a campus, those funds are reflected in the campus report. So for example, in the current reporting year, the Chancellor's office reported $4 million in gift commitments, and there was an additional $3 million that was counted by campuses. Over the 5 years, most activity has been focused on 2 major priorities: Teacher Preparation and Graduation Initiative 2025. And those 2 priorities are intertwined because quality teaching prepares students for college, college-level work, and timely progression to graduation. Our teacher education team has built amazing relationships with Chevron and the Irvine, Packard, Stewart, and Bechtel Foundations. These foundations have invested $10 million through the Chancellor's office in the teacher induction model, teacher recruiting, and updating classroom curriculum in the areas of linked learning, Common Core, and the next generation science standards. Our partnership with Bechtel started with a planning grant, then $3 million distributed on a competitive basis to campuses, then another $11 million distributed directly to campuses. As you can see by the quote, Bechtel values the work that we have done to improve K-12 schools and the legacy that it will leave. We are all laser focused on efforts to support Graduation Initiative 2025. The Gilbert, Hemsley, Irvine, and Johnson Foundations have been our partners in developing pathways from community college, investing $5 million. The Stupski Foundation awarded $484,000 for the creation of a Student Success Analytics Certification Program. It takes the amazing work underway with data analytics to provide personalized intervention for our students and develops a certificate program for faculty and staff recognizing their mastery of those skills. As the Graduation Initiative gains national attention, the big players are coming together and collaborating to help us reach our graduation goals. Gates, College Futures, Irvine, and Lumina are all at the table with $3 million and more in the pipeline to help us redesign developmental education and help mitigate obstacles that delay graduation. We are excited by our growing ability to obtain resources for major system initiatives. Another way that we support campuses is through the Advancement Academy, which provides training opportunities. The objectives of the Advancement Academy include building a culture of philanthropy, improving overall fundraising performance, and attracting and retaining high-quality advancement professionals. Just last week, 50 academic professionals attended a workshop to imagine what could be possible with donor support and to craft that story. They also learned that connecting the important work that they do with the personal experiences of donors improves fundraising success. President Covino's provost and several deans from Cal State LA attended the workshop, and President Covino will share a few thoughts about the importance of creating a culture of philanthropy across the university and how our training programs support campus efforts.
Thank you, Lori. At last week's workshop, our provost and the Cal State LA deans benefited from a robust discussion of how to create a compelling vision and narrative that inspires donors. They came back with a reinforced sense that the easiest and best fundraising strategy is to speak passionately about what you do. When we are all speaking, as we often do, passionately about the university and its promise for the future, more donors want to be invested in our success. In addition to workshops about donor motivation, the Advancement Academy is sponsoring a study on the culture of philanthropy, conducted by former Fresno State Vice President for Advancement, Peter Smits, who's currently a Case Fellow. The purpose of the study is to define elements that advance a culture of philanthropy and find opportunities to help CSU campuses accelerate giving. Cal State LA also participates in a research collaborative that examines annual giving data to identify new technologies, trends, and best practices. Our results are compared nationally and among our CSU peers. These are a few examples of how the Chancellor's Office supports campus advancement activity. One of the great benefits of being part of a system, especially the CSU system, is to learn from each other's success and to leverage professional development opportunities. Thank you for letting me reflect on those opportunities.
Thank you, President Covino. Your efforts to build a culture of philanthropy at Cal State LA is evident in the campus raising the most gifts in its 70-year history in 2016-17. CSU Advancement Academy is now in its third year. Over 300 academic and philanthropic leaders across the system have attended our workshops in that time. We try to provide targeted training based on campus needs. Other workshops include strategies to improve annual giving, cold calling techniques, effective donor prospecting, and operations problem solving. We also have instituted a newcomers workshop for first-year fundraising professionals that introduces and reviews issues that are unique to advancement at the CSU. And because advancement tends to be a comprehensive division on most campuses, training and professional development extends beyond fundraising. The Academy conducts workshops in crisis communications, social media, as well as advocacy. We believe these efforts to nurture a culture of philanthropy and share best practices have positively impacted our fundraising results and the positive image of the CSU. Trustee Abrego, that concludes our report, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Let me first turn to Trustee Fristenberg. You attended last week's workshop. Would you like to share any comments about your experience?
Yes, thank you so much, Cy. Today is a perfect example, I think, of how to tell the Cal State story brilliantly. I think the Chancellor and President Nelson really show the insight, the commitment, and the empathy that's absolutely required to be great fundraisers, cheerleaders, advancement professionals. This report is a great report. When we were talking to Garrett about how we can be helpful, I wanted to go to the workshop to see what the system provided to each of the campuses, and it was a great experience. I wish I'd had it 30 years ago when I was learning fundraising at the American Film Institute. I met deans, I met provost, I met an athletic director. And they worked together with their advancement employees to figure out the best way to tell their story. So I think on a system-wide basis, we're really doing a fantastic job. What I wanted to suggest was, how can we as trustees be helpful to you? How can you all are creating relationships with people in your community who can make a difference. But if you ever need us, if you'd like us to come to breakfast or to lunch or to dinner with someone just to talk about why we are sitting at this table and why we consider it an honor to be here, please use us. I think that a trustee sometimes can say things that others cannot. So I just offer that up, and I'm going to be going to some more meetings with the vice presidents for advancement on Friday, to the Entertainment Alliance Advisory Committee, where the chancellor will be, to really try to get to know everything that we're doing within the system. But I think one thing that I was so excited about was that the chancellor and several of the presidents went on an overseas visit. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing that we should be doing. And I wonder if you could tell us how you felt about that trip.
Well, thank you, Trustee Furstenberg. I'm still recovering. Taiwan and Hong Kong are just about halfway around the globe. We had a chance to visit. It was the first time, actually, that the CSU held a system-wide opportunity for our alums in Taiwan and in Hong Kong. And if my memory is correct, there's 3,750 CSU alums in Taiwan and 2,100 CSU alums in Hong Kong. And there were two system-wide events that had roughly 150 Taiwanese or Hong Kong folks there. And they were so excited. San Francisco State and other universities have had campus-based alumni receptions before, and those have been powerful. And San Francisco has a chapter, and I think San Bernardino's folks are starting to start a new chapter. But when all of the campus, I think we had 11 or 13 campus alums in one room, and the energy there sort of transcended which campus they had, and it became sort of this CSU family in Taiwan or in Hong Kong. And I think the system presence is perhaps more important in international, because of this, of the critical mass of people doesn't change their alliance with the campus that they earned their degree from, but it does create a much more opening doors among. And then there were 5 presidents who joined us. We also met with the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Science and Technology, and the U.S. Economic Director in Hong Kong, who was extremely excited to have 5 presidents to talk about the opportunities of intellectual growth, research growth, and exchange. So it was really quite a profound experience, and I think everybody to a person enjoyed being there and found that there was value in that experience. And finally, I was invited actually to give a keynote to the 168 presidents in Taiwan, a country, an island of 12 million people. Just stop and think about that. 168 universities and 12 million population. I got it. Yeah. We just funded 33 would be better. So I digress. Asked me to give comments about CSU to this annual gathering of all of the presidents, and it was so extremely well received because they just looked to us in California as the way to do it. And so it was quite gratifying for the opportunity. I want to thank Garrett and his staff, Lori and Erin Shafelia, and Les Wong, who's got deep and long roots in these communities, and the presidents that joined us, Tomas and Jane and Jeff, and who am I missing here? Les and Mary Papazian, all were there, and I think to a person found great connections with various universities there as well.
Thank you, Trustee Furstenberg and Chancellor White. Are there any other questions or comments? Peter?
Thank you, Chair Abrego. I'm maybe going to broach a bit of a sensitive topic in this space, but I think given the future trajectory of CSU, it's about time that our trustees address our own personal responsibility. I've raised a lot of money for a lot of nonprofit organizations, sat on boards of directors like a lot of you, currently run a foundation where we make grant making in the post-secondary education space. And I realize maybe fundraising and gift giving isn't part of the ethos and the culture at CSU like it is a private university, but I think it's well past time that the trustees examine our own personal commitment and create an expectation that each of us will personally donate to CSU, whether it be on a campus or to the trustee scholarship. Personally, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another, but I think it's terribly important that our advancement personnel, when they're out there soliciting gifts from alumni, foundations, corporations, be able to state that their trustees 100% go in their own pocket and contribute to this fine institution. Understanding all of us are able to contribute at different levels, that's fine, but there ought to be an expectation that each of us, for the honor of sitting around this table, rip into our own pocket and contribute what we can to support student success, faculty success, and the overall ability of this institution continue to serve this state. So I'd encourage your committee, Trustee Abrego, to consider something along that line.
Thank you for that, Peter. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is more technical in nature. As I look at the report, I show a breakdown of 3 different groups, and those groups are associated with how many staff they have associated with their advancement efforts. Some have 10 or less, and some have many more than that. And I look at the campuses, and I'm not sure I understand the strategic array of why some campuses have some and some campuses have more. And I wonder, as we move forward in this world of having to increase our philanthropic support, if we are being strategic in the allocation of our resources to fundraising, and this grouping makes sense. And maybe it does, maybe this has all been thought of and the strategies are laid out, but to me it looks like perhaps there's an opportunity to be much more effective and to support this important effort perhaps more grandly. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hugo?
I would just want to congratulate the campuses for all the work that you do in fundraising, and also want to say that the strategic investments that some foundations are making for the preparation of our teachers, and remind the state that we graduate about half the teachers. It's so important. And I just want to say that among the needs that will be met through this investment is the preparation of teachers that will continue to address the needs of children in low-income communities, and also the children, which is the majority in LA or the San Joaquin Valley, of children who do not speak English at home. And that's something that is as I see it, a really big, some will say problem, others will say challenge. And we do not have enough teachers in our public schools to hire that speak a language other than English. And so I think that this investment that these foundations are making is so important at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Jean?
I just wanted to second what Peter said, but I really believe that anyone who serves on a not-for-profit board understands that part of the responsibility of sitting on that board is to contribute, and no matter what way it might be. But I just wanted to tell you how thrilling it has been for my family to have our first scholarship recipients and what they have meant to us. And going to that first dinner where they were announced, and not only meeting them, but seeing the number of faculty who had set up scholarships after they had retired was absolutely what it's all about. The faculty care about students, and they care about them even after they're retired. So it's a fantastic circle of giving, but getting so much more back.
Thank you. Congratulations to the presidents for a record-breaking fundraising year. Know that the trustees want to be helpful in your efforts. We are available to meet with your donors and share our enthusiasm for the great work you are doing. The annual report on donor support for 2016-17 is an action item before the Committee on Institutional Advancement. Only committee members may vote at this time. May I have a motion? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The annual report on donor support for 2016-17 is approved. I do want to make a note of Peter's comment about board members making contributions to the fund, and to follow up on John's suggestions of finding out what type of resources our development offices have, and whether or not, you have to invest money to make money, as the saying goes. So if we could get some kind of report on the status of staffing and budget and things like that, I think would be helpful to us. Chair Ashton, this concludes the business of the Committee on Institutional Advancement.
Trustee Abrego, we are now going to take our lunch break for 1 hour. We'll be back here at 12:30. Thank you so much.
This is the California State University Office of the Chancellor's live stream.